Hey everyone, welcome to HR Tech Talks. As you'll notice, it is not a Monday, but you probably can guess why. This is a holiday week. We had a special episode queued up, and so I'm so excited for the discussion today. Looking forward to sharing with you, learning with you, and as always, if you're watching this live, feel free to chime in. Let us know where you're connecting them from. I always love to see where people are listening in, as well as if you're watching this later on. I always love to see the posts on the recording after the fact. After we finish wrapping up the live conversation, people can see when you chime in, when you comment. So if you're watching this 2 days from now or a month from now or whenever, go ahead and comment something. You have a question, you have a comment, you have an idea, feel free to share that, because everyone else that has commented and participated in the event can see that as well. So that's the fun of streaming live. So again, I'm Ben Eubanks. I'm the host here for HR Tech Talks. I'm looking forward to the conversation today. We're going to talk about, everybody is talking about recruiting these days because it's really hard to find candidates. I actually saw a chart the other day that showed state by state for the US the number of candidates available versus the number of jobs and openings available. And some states it's completely even, like 1 for 1. That's a really nice place to be, probably. But other ones, it's pretty dramatic, the gap there. Many more openings than there are people, and companies are trying to figure out, how do we hire faster? How do we be more efficient? How do we be more effective with our recruiters' time? They don't need to be spending time doing a bunch of admin things. They need to be connecting with and sourcing candidates. So in the discussion today, we'll talk about some of those kinds of things with Alex Murphy from JobSync. He's the CEO over there. We're going to talk about how they're helping employers to do that. We'll talk about some of the trends and things he's seeing in the industry. We'll also just dive into some of the nerdy things like how data connects between recruiting systems and why we probably shouldn't be doing that as recruiting leaders, but we should be using experts and subject matter experts to help solve for that kind of thing, because that's what they do best, and it's not where we need to be spending our time. So enough of that lead in. Alex, welcome to the show, sir. Glad to have you.
Thanks, Ben, for having me. Just as we were getting warmed up, my 7-year-old ran in. It was going to make a BBC moment, so it's kind of funny to be on backstage. But thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm glad to be here, and I always have that sneaking like dread in the back of my mind that one of the kids is going to come like pounding up the stairs and want to have a conversation right in the middle of it. And you know what? Worst things could happen. So
Right.
before we dive into some of those things I was teasing there in the intro, would you take a minute and give us a little about who you are and what you do, sir, please?
Absolutely. So, like Ben said, my name's Alex Murphy. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of JobSync. We are a workflow automation tool for the talent acquisition uh, ecosystem. We connect job boards, ATSs, and all the specialty software systems in between that companies use to find and select and hire talent. And we're really kind of on a pretty big mission to help eliminate all of the monotonous manual effort of moving data back and forth between systems, and to remove friction for everybody in the application and job search process.
Wonderful. Awesome. So I'm a data guy, right? I'm so excited to talk about these kinds of things. Usually it's, here's how you create a pretty application, or here's how you shorten the steps in the hiring flow or whatever else. But I'm really excited about this piece of it because for some reason, I don't know, we tend to forget that kind of all of the steps, all the pieces of the process. There are data behind every piece of that. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I had a chance to talk to the head of recruiting for a major rental car company, and he was telling me that they actually, I'm trying to remember the exact term he used. Basically, when people are applying into their CRM to get they're collecting candidates in their CRM, it's not hooked to anything. So he said they're basically like, it's like filling your car and having a hole in the tank, and they're just kind of flowing away, and they never actually passed them to their ATS or had them go through an assessment or had them anywhere else in the process. It was, if we don't filter and sort and contact them through here, they just basically don't exist in the rest of our ecosystem. And so like those kinds of things, it sounds like a silly example, but this was a thousands of people, major company, and just like, we never stopped to figure out how to do that because they didn't have that expertise in-house. So I don't know if you hear stuff that crazy, but I'd imagine you probably see things like that when you're trying to help companies figure out how to get a hold of the different types of data they have and how it passes between the different tools they're using, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that story, it's funny actually, because the CRM for talent acquisition as a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It actually came about because a founder started a company to be the best ATS, And he went around, this is like in the mid 2000s, he went around and sold it, to all these different companies and said, "Isn't that great?" And everybody said, "Yep, it's great. It's so much better than early ATS." And he said, "Great, so let's sign up." And they'd say, "Come back in 5 years because we're on this long contract." So he regrouped after a year and said, "Okay, it can't be an ATS." Added folders, went back out and said, "Something new. This isn't an ATS. This is a CRM." And so all of a sudden, you have the CRM that's like kind of replacing for some people, used in different ways, but never was actually intended to be like a supporting function. Fast forward 15 years, people are in the situation you're talking about where the data doesn't flow, or more frequently, recruiters end up being tasked with getting the data from one system into another. And so, what do they do to solve that? Well, because the data structures don't line up and everything isn't perfect, they end up exporting all the data in CSV files and then munging it together inside of Microsoft Excel, kind of building your VLOOKUPs. And I mean, the number of recruiters that I know that know how to build prolific VLOOKUP cross-referencing tables inside of Microsoft Excel is phenomenally large and kind of scary. Um, and then they end up uploading it into whatever their system of record is going to be. And we show up and we say, look, we're just going to move the data back and forth based on your rules, exactly how you would do it, and we'll do it in an automated way, monitor if things break because of new data or whatever, and then fix it so that you don't have to do that work anymore. And it's kind of a wonderful day when we introduce that concept.
So there's a couple things I want to touch on in that comment you made. The first one is you said back and forth. It's not just let's shove it all over there. It's just a one-way flow, and if anything changes, too bad. But it's actually, it can pull data back into the system as things are changing or evolving over here in this other piece. It's a bidirectional conversation, for lack of a better term, right between the two systems. And I appreciate that, because it's one thing to say we're going to just ram it all through, and whatever changes are made over here, it just overwrites everything. It pushes it. I've had to deal with that in the past from an HR and recruiting context, and it's not fun at all to find out that all the changes you just made, again, think about one of those recruiters you're talking about, all the changes you just made, someone just wiped them out because they updated this and hit the sync button and it blasted it all out. So that's one thing I want to touch on that I think is really powerful, and things that people don't, again, you don't stop and think about that, or you assume, oh, it syncs, it must be bidirectional. And I think that's folly to assume that it's going to do that way.
Yeah, it's interesting. So our original use case is around actually getting the application out of the applicant tracking system, which is a great system for the recruiter to use, not really a great application collection system, right? Take that application and all the requirements for that individual job posting and put it on the job site, right? So have the candidate complete the entire application on Indeed, on ZipRecruiter, on Facebook, wherever they are, right? So you go to where the candidate is, give the candidate the experience that they expect from everything they do as a consumer, right? You go to Amazon, you can buy virtually anything from Amazon, from virtually any company, because every seller puts their products on Amazon and lists it as part of their marketplace. And so as a consumer, you go to Amazon, you kind of have a one-stop shop. You go to Walmart, you have a one-stop shop. You go to almost any e-commerce site now, you can buy things that are actually presented there. So we enable that same experience as a job seeker. So you can go to Indeed and apply to a job and have the application actually delivered all the way through. Before this type of experience, 19 out of 20 people that start the apply process don't finish. After this, so when a candidate applies on the job site, the conversion rates go to 25, 30%. You're seeing anywhere from a 4 to 8x increase in applications on the job site. So that bidirectional piece, to kind of come back to that point. So as a recruiter, you post your job inside the ATS, you define the questionnaire, you put all the pieces together that really are the essence of what you need to collect, screening questions, knockout questions, etc. That data needs to go up to the job site, and then the application data needs to come back into the ATS, and it all needs to work seamlessly and fluidly and in real time. And that's at the essence of the core, like what we're doing, whether it's between ATS and job site or between a text messaging platform and the ATS and the job site, and connecting all these various kind of really intricate multi-system uh, workflows.
Yeah, I love that. Well, one of the whole, so I've got a couple data points floating around in my head. So we finished a study just recently on how companies are adapting and changing over the coming year on in their TA functions. And one of the things we asked about was, have you seen value from some of these tools in recruiting automation? And this is an example of those, I would argue, where it's automating some of those things that up until now someone was the stuckey. Hey, you're the junior recruiter on the team. I need you to sift through these Excel files here, watch these videos so you can get up to speed on your VLOOKUPs, right? They're handing those off and having someone do that, but not a single one of us. I know I didn't. I don't know about you. You've done some recruiting staffing in your past, right? You didn't get into it because you're like, I can't wait to sort through databases and look at numbers and try to clean data and make sure that that doesn't excite me at all. Right? It excites me talking to people and connecting with people. And this, for a lot of those companies, is actually a hurdle to actually getting to those conversations, to getting to that. So one of the things we saw in the research was companies said, if we are seeing more efficiency from this stuff, we're not just saying, okay, we're going to cut all of our staff down. No, we're actually spending more time talking to candidates. We're spending more time screening candidates, trying to understand who they are and who's out there and how to reach them, because they need right now that time. Again, it's kind of blocked off. It's unavailable. Like blocking half your calendar for the week for those meetings that you have to take, and you don't get to do any other actual work. It's the same kind of thing. They're stuck there. So I love the piece on really freeing up that recruiter efficiency, that recruiter effectiveness, because if they're spending their time doing that, then they're never going to be able to give their best efforts to this other stuff, because they're always going to have the Excel hangover, I call it, where you've been working through it and trying to get through some big project. I've actually just had one of those this morning, so I'm feeling it kind of right now, actually. But they're never able to actually give their best or focus on those things that excite them about recruiting, because they're spending their time doing all these other manual tasks they have to get done. But as you're saying, like, they don't have to be done by a human anymore. Thank goodness.
Right. So there are a couple things to draw out in there. First, a lot of the automation inside of the world of recruitment is inside of individual systems.
Hold on, Alex. Your mic got hung up there for a second. All right, we're going to get Alex's mic fixed up. Alex, hit refresh on this, and you can come back in, and I'll bring you right back into the conversation. Okay, just hit refresh in your browser.
So
oh, actually, I can hear you now.
Right?
I can hear you. Yes, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. It was getting a little fuzzy.
Of gaps in the Verizon system.
So, it's all right.
All right. So what I was going to say about the automation is that it's often inside of one system, right? So automation happens because some event took place that then triggers an automated activity to occur. And what gets tricky is when you try. Were you still good? Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure. What gets tricky is when you try to create that automation between many different systems, right? And so that's a big part about what we're trying to drive in terms of the efficiency. And one of the things that was interesting last year, we participated in a study with Nucleus Research, and they looked at the solution that we were bringing. We actually had submitted for an award, thinking that our impact on driving more applications was going to be award winning. When they actually dug into what we were doing, they really helped us realize what we do in terms of the impact for recruiters and their time. So one of our clients, Headway Workforce Solutions, was manually posting jobs on Indeed to get the quick apply, and then they were getting those applicants into their inbox, and then they'd have to manage and disposition those candidates through the inbox and then ultimately into their ATS. And by putting our solution in place, the application was completed on Indeed, delivered straight into their ATS, and they found that we were saving 10 hours a week per recruiter. So roughly a quarter of their week was given back so that they could do exactly what you said, which was talk to more candidates. Imagine a quarter of your time given back to you to be able to go do the core function, which is to actually cultivate and nurture along that candidate so that they are engaged and ready to talk to a hiring manager so that they can move through more quickly. That resulted in faster time to a solid slate of candidates, ready to interview ready, ready to go up for final decisions, made hires faster, et cetera, et cetera. So they gave us an ROI award last year because of it. It wasn't something that we actually were as focused on, and it was a real tipping point for us as a company to realize, wow, what we're doing here, it's awesome to generate more applications and reduce friction and create a great candidate experience. Love that. But actually for the teams inside the company, like it's totally, earth shattering in terms of like what the impact is for them.
That is tremendous. Wow. And see, a minute ago, we were chatting about it, and I had this kind of picture in my head, but to have the actual data behind that, that's pretty incredible to see that and to understand how big of an impact that is. Of all of the different functions and talent and learning and HR, all those different pieces of it, recruiters are the most competitive, right? Because you're trying to get that talent before someone else can. You can understand, you can see when they slip out of your grasp, like that you just someone got them before you could. And that's the lens that I'm hearing this from is if I'm competing in the marketplace, trying to find the best people, trying to find the right candidates for our company, and we're doing this other stuff, that's a 10-hour gap where I can't be responsive. I can't support a candidate because I'm doing all these other things that, again, they don't add value in the moment to how you're interacting with those candidates. One of the things you talked about, the automation thing, it made me think of a conversation I had with someone recently. And it was a really interesting tie-in. I'd forgotten all about it until you mentioned automation, because we think about it happening in one place, but the ability to connect multiple systems is like another level entirely. They were telling me that they said if you think about the algorithm that runs a video conference call, right? If it's just me and you having a conference call, then that system is sending you what I'm doing, so you can see it live, and it's sending me what you're doing. So it's pretty simple. But if you add another person, suddenly it's sending my stuff to two people and those two people to me at the same time. And it gets exponentially harder the more you add to that, the more difficult it is and the more complex it becomes really, really quickly. So if you have a call with 8 people on there, it's not just eight sends. I can't do the math in my head, right? But it's sending a ton of data back and forth. It's sending a ton of data back and forth. And that's the thing that I'm trying to get people to understand is this isn't just about, or you talked about, I don't want them to oversimplify, like it's taking something where you were just doing it in Excel and now you can do it somewhere else. No, it's beyond that. Alex has talked about, for those of you listening, right, he's mentioned things like when it breaks, they get alerted so they can help you fix it. Right? It's keeping the data synchronized in multiple places. Like all those kind of things are more than just, because one of the things that I found for recruiters, and you tell me if this is wrong, because this is just my experience, is we're the first ones to say, I'll just do that. It's hard, but I'll just do it because it needs to get done. And so the competition for a tool like this is just somebody saying, I'll just do this myself and try to hack it and make it work. And I'll hone my VLOOKUPs and they'll just figure out how to try to do it themselves. But it's still just a partial solution. It's never going to be as good as what you're offering. What's your thought on that?
Well, I mean, I think anything that you're doing on a repetitive basis means that you're no longer using your brain for the best thing that you could be using it for, which is to be creative, right? That's first. Second, as awesome as like moving data is back and forth between Excel, if you're doing it, it means that it's being done on a batch basis, right? So like if we just get down to the practical reality, you can't sit there and manually move the data 12 times a day and catch it every couple of hours, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that the conversation about how marketing can be applied to recruiting is probably overdone, right? Like they're different things, recruiting and marketing. Like there are a lot of similar activities, but they're not exactly the same thing. But one thing I think does apply, which is speed matters a lot with leads, be it a candidate lead or a marketing lead. And something marketers got wise to a long time ago is that there's a limited amount of time, a window that is a window that's really shrinking, right? In terms of how long you have to get in touch with that person before they start to lose interest in what it is that you're offering. And from a recruitment perspective, it's all too common for it to be days or a week or longer before a candidate gets like a human contact, not the autoresponder that says, "Thank you, we got your resume," but like a human connecting with you, right? And that's because they need to be dispositioned, which often is just a function of evaluating screening questions before they get advanced. Um, and like automating those pieces because you have a rule set, right? And you get granular about it, and then you force that through, and then you immediately start the process of what's next. So we've recently started to build this integration with which brings in text messaging, so really can work with any platform. We partner really closely with a texting platform called Pivot CX, and we basically introduce it as apply to high. So candidate submits their application on the job site, and the application comes through JobSync, gets pushed into the ATS, and immediately gets pushed into the text platform. And then the candidate will get a response via text because they were qualified based upon a certain score or achievement on a set of screening questions. Hey, thank you for applying. Looks like you passed our first screen. We have this additional question. And a recruiter can then engage with that candidate in a conversation via text in real time based on information the candidate put in the application. So they're going from an apply at 12:23 Eastern to a text message at 12:25 that the recruiter can then reply and respond and engage with at 12:26. Like that's revolutionary as it's related to recruiting, but that's real life right now. And the best, most forward-thinking TA organizations are thinking about how to get that level of engagement that fast because it's completely differentiated as it's related to impressing the candidate and gets them moving forward towards, a full phone screen interview with a hiring manager, et cetera, really fast.
Yeah, that is wild. I'm thinking about the speed to respond, and again, my recruiting experience is a little bit dated, but that I still remember when someone would come into the ATS and you're getting the notification like, oh, this is the one. It's not a, hey, I'll call them back next Thursday. It's, I'm going to call them right now and do that and try to get in touch with them and build that relationship because it's immediately a strike now. And I'm thinking of you were talking a minute ago, I'm thinking like the shelf life or the half life of those candidates when they're applying and they are as excited as they're ever going to be. And every minute that passes that's slowly tailing off over time, likely. And you're missing a chance to hit them when they're most excited. They want to hear from you. So that's really, really impressive. And in less than just a few minutes, as you were saying, they can go from applying, getting the basic details, answering the screening questions. And if they hit those, whatever those criteria are, they get that outreach immediately. That is wild to think about being able to do that. Because as a recruiter, again, the other joke I made the one about data earlier, but I make the joke like none of us got into recruiting because we want to look at a ton of resumes every day. That's part of it. We put up with that, but none of us want to sift through 100 different resumes and try to figure out which 3 we call back. And to be able to have that first screen automatically done, when you start the conversation with them, you're able to get past those things, again, that are just nuts and bolts parts of the conversation. We have to do them because we have to screen, but to have those things just handled so you can jump into the meatier parts of the conversation or understanding the nuances of their skills or what sort of experience they bring that's different from this other candidate. You can go right to those parts of the conversation that are really high value for a recruiter and skip the other things that we just ask these questions. Will you relocate? Are you a U.S. citizen? Are you, like, whatever the questions we have to ask them just to get through those. I just love that picture in my head of getting that response back quickly as a candidate, especially it's not every case. It's not every single candidate is applying, but when you see candidates that are applying because they had a crummy shift or they had a bad day at work, like, again, that reinforces that right now is the time to respond to them because they are most likely to move at this point. They're giving you all the signals that they're ready to go, and you can't miss that, or you really will miss that, I guess.
It's funny that you bring that up. So I spent years as a job board operator,
Mhm.
and the job search graph is interesting, right? It's always it bounces back and forth over the past couple of decades between Monday and Tuesday, but Monday and Tuesday are the peak days for
Mhm.
people searching for jobs. And people say, well, why? At night? No, 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 no. During the day, like from work. Really? Like people search for jobs from work on Monday, Tuesday? Yep. Generally, like 3 minutes after having a bad interaction with their boss, right? So
Yes.
you walk out of the room with your boss, you had a one on one. That boss said something, indicated something, made you feel in a way that said, you know what, now it's the time. And you
Yeah.
go and run a search. And then if the application is easy, right? And that easy doesn't mean easy sometimes means name, email, and a resume, but like easy meaning like can be done on your phone because as one of my colleagues, David Bernstein, likes to say, um, apply with thumbs, right? So it's AWT. So simple screening questions, 5, 6, 7 screening questions, yes, no, simple drop down selects, not like not having to write out long paragraphs of prose. So relatively simplified application, easy, catches them in the moment, makes it so that they can tip over. There's literally a book called Don't Make Me Think, right? So like don't make the person have to think too hard about it. You want them to advance. You don't want them to get all the way down to the bottom of the funnel. Ask the difficult questions later at the appropriate time once you've narrowed it down, right?
Mhm.
So you make it easy. They're still hot, right? Like about that interaction with their boss. They're like, I need to get out of this company. That's the best time to talk to them, right? Like right then and there. And probably not actually on the phone because they're probably still in the office or in an environment maybe where they can't actually have a voice conversation. So texting is just the best, right? Um, the uh, not SendGrid, the texting platform Twilio says that 98% of text messages are read within 3 minutes, right? So if you go from the application to the screening, first screening's done in an automated way, to that first outreach is sent by text, within 5 minutes, a person is reading your first message at the point when they're going to have the most desire to make the transition out.
Yeah.
All you need to do is extend your hand and pull them across.
That's tremendous. Tremendous. Okay. So I've been just having fun with the stories and swapping data points with you and stuff, and we're actually close on the time. So for those that have been listening in that appreciate the problems you're solving, that want to know more about what JobSync is doing, and you were telling me before we actually started recording, there's some other use cases and other applications for this we didn't even get to in the conversations. There's lots of ways. Anything in your hiring process where there's data being collected and potentially being passed back and forth or needing to be passed back and forth, that's what they do. One of the team told me at one time, like, we're the plumbing behind the scenes. Like, if we move everything back and forth, and I love that visual. Alex, if someone wants to connect or learn more, what's the best way to do that?
So the best way is to go to jobsync.io. So jobsync.io. If you put .com in there by mistake, you'll get routed over. So don't worry. Or connect with me on LinkedIn. There are a bunch of us as well. Amy Warren, our VP of Marketing, David Bernstein, heads up our sales. Stephanie Covino is in charge of product. We're all available and accessible on LinkedIn. You can also send an email, amurphy@jobsync.io, and we look forward to talking with you soon.
Awesome.
Ben, thanks for your time.
Hey, absolutely. And I forgot to mention it. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, in the show notes right there, you can click over and view more. You can click right over to Alex's LinkedIn profile or to JobSync on LinkedIn. You can follow the company there to keep up with what they're announcing, what they're doing, because they're doing some good work in the space. Alex, thank you again for joining us. I really appreciate your time, sir.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
right. Everybody else, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I saw a couple comments coming in from Stephanie, Eric. Thank you both for the kind words. I know that Alex will appreciate seeing those when he gets on. Wrapping up the recording. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out with us. I appreciate you for listening in, and we'll be coming up soon. We're taking a little break, a little hiatus, some summertime off, but we'll be coming back in just a few weeks with a new episode of HR Tech Talks. So stay tuned. I look forward to catching you all back here. We meet every Monday at 11 a.m. Central Time to learn more about the innovative companies serving the HR, the talent, the learning space, and how we get this work done. It's so much fun for me to learn alongside you about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your week.